because that's what makes your abuser feel more comfortable. And the new abuser is all the people asking you how you're doing who don't want to know how you're doing. Seem a little crazy? Yeah, it seems a little crazy. You don't want to know how I'm doing, so why are you asking how I'm doing? Well, I want to do what your abuser did. Didn't you learn when you were a kid? You see, he didn't want to know how you're doing, but he wanted to feel good about himself, so he would ask, wasn't that fun? And you had to say yes, or he wouldn't spend any time with you. And being completely neglected and abandoned was worse than being abused. So you'd say yes, which meant he would abuse you some more, so that you could learn regulation skills, that you could learn how to grow in an abuse pattern. And now, your abuser also doesn't want to know the truth, doesn't want to know how you're doing, but they also want to look good and pretend like they're being social and all that. So, to be polite, not because they're interested, they ask how you're doing, and you're supposed to be polite and lie, like you did with the abuser, and say, it's wonderful, it's great, wonderful, I'm keeping busy. You keeping busy? Yeah, I've got loads of work, keeping busy. And that's, of course, the main metric. Keeping busy? No, I took 6 months off. I'm doing some healing work. Well, gosh, business is that bad, is it? You know, it's inconceivable that someone might actually, in this culture, want to put something ahead of money, which is dehumanizing, which is the final envelope of abuse. There's a last piece which, we've got the left brain focus, we've got the emphasis on money and capitalism, we've got the regular trauma of war, which produces reptilian states, which of course don't empathize with the child. We've got an enormous amount of chauvinism, in which everything feminine is shamed and everything masculine is elevated, particularly sociopathic, cool masculine. We've got cutting humor, which is called funny. It's just very cutting. We've got willful ignorance. I don't have time for that. We have the fact that trauma needs help. We cannot do it alone. And we have a fact that if you send out an email, I'm dealing with trauma, I need someone to listen to me for 6 or 7 hours, I need someone to hold me, I need this and that and the other, all of your 2,000 friends suddenly vanish. Or because they don't want to feel bad that they're not doing anything and not showing up and don't want to ask because they don't want to do what you need, they like to give little 30-second advice. I can't talk now, but read this book. Read this book and get back to me. You, in an abused, traumatized state, go and do something you can't concentrate on and get back to me so that I can feel good about myself, that I'm too busy to help you, my friend. But I don't want to say that, so I'm going to throw the ball in your court. You've asked for help. I'm going to ask you to do something you can't do. Go read this book and do this. And so we have the help as abuse dynamic. We have abuse repeating in domestic partnerships. When it can't be dealt with effectively, it repeats, so then it gets worse, which leads to more shame. We have addiction, which leads to shame, because a culture doesn't say, we're so sorry, we've fucked up your life in such a painful way in childhood, etc., that you're an addict. How can we help? No. Constant shaming and attack of people who are expressing the shame caused by the cult, not the way they were born. We then have the shame of failure, which is part of addiction, abuse, and all that. That, again, you're a loser, you're a winner. It has nothing to do with your cult setting you up to fail or setting you up to win. It has everything to do with you, which is a lie. So this is part of the brainwashing. It's all about you, the individual. No, it isn't. It's complete nonsense. There is so much painfully and positive about my life. If I hadn't done that whole European tour and all that, if I hadn't spent time in multiple places to realize that dogma is just that, it's dogma. You have to spend time with a dogmatic group over here, and then another dogmatic group here, and then another dogmatic group there. And you realize they're all self-referential. They can't all be right, and they all think they're right, which means they're probably all wrong because they're not talking to one another. They're not looking at the bigger picture. So there's so much that I wouldn't be. If I wasn't an American, I might not have the money to be taking a whole day off work to make a video that isn't paid for, and so there's so many pieces that have nothing to do with us. They're the probability fields of our environment. If I was born in the Thoe tribe in Brazil, I'd probably never have been physically hurt, never traumatized, and have seen great peaceful human and animal relationships for most of my life. But I wasn't. I was born here. The blocked medicine is the last ring of this. And we're just going to take a few moments here for some raspberries. The blind spot of how valuable feminine energy is. In the yin and the yang, they are both equal. It is the whole split into two equal parts. When you have a polarity, its potential is reached in the synergy of the parts that form into two different poles. Feminine energy on a technical level is as essential as masculine energy, and masculine energy is as essential as feminine energy. They are equal. So the cult that shames feminine energy, starting with the preference of men over women because of status symbols and some things where you see girls being thrown out in garbage bags, flushed down the drain, the one-child China policy leading to an enormous amount of infanticide, particularly of girls, which is now creating a population of more men than women. There's a very big face of chauvinism, but it's much deeper than boys over girls. It's valuing masculine energy, focus, plan, get it done, push, make it happen, talk, teach, lead, get it done. This is all masculine energy. Diffuse, share, create, co-create, be, feel, enjoy, presence, feminine energy. Everything that makes life worth living is feminine energy. Everything that creates the structure, you've got that masculine aspect. But we've got a bizarre culture that has so many things we don't know what to do with them, masculine energy. And yet we feel empty, lonely, hollow. Our feminine reservoir is drained in the constant barrage of toxicity and shame directed at it. It's no wonder there is a blind spot around feminine energy. We don't know enough about coping strategies, and we can't yet discern what's me and what's my coping strategy and what's this cult that I was born into that really has nothing to do with me. We have a blind spot around that, which will remain as we remain emotionally illiterate. Competent therapy, research is not being done and data is not being collected. How many people who went to a therapist today experienced well-being? How much? How much well-being would they have experienced if they hadn't gone to that therapist? And which people are really, getting 97% of their people well versus other people getting a third of their people well by sheer dumb luck? And so we need protocols to measure this. We need parenting skills, parental training to honor the child for the gifts they can bring to the country and the cult when they are healthy and whole, to honor the unnamed, the buried, the shadow child that carries all the pain of all the wounds that we've given it, to hide our dark feelings so that we can be chirpy and smile and have our little narrow, thin faces presented in the cultural norm that is positive and appropriate. We have the distinctions between the power of positive mental attitude and deep truth and grieving work, how both have their place and where to lean such that the deep pains and shames are not being silenced into deeper shames on the dogma of being positive and getting over it, and that research is done on the relative merits of this. We need substantial research and caring from birth to parent to death to move towards a culture of symmetry where the old are as valuable as the young are as valuable as the middle, where sweet, sour, ungent, salty, spicy, and bitter are all part of the diet rather than the obsession. It's in an unbalanced culture. We like sweet and salty and sometimes hot. Asian cultures have a wider palate. They take better care of their elderly. They have a wider palate in their diet. They take better care of their young. They have a better balance of masculine and feminine energy. They're an older culture, 4,000 years old versus 400 years old. It's time to show some respect to older cultures, the best of them, the best aspects of them, rather than relegating them with the same chauvinistic dismissal that we throw our old people away in old folks' homes, rather than invite them to our table as honored guests. Because we have no honored table, because we're slaving at a job for a capitalistic monster that is consuming sometimes more than it's giving. In our slave to efficiency, to productivity, all masculine traits devoid of the grace and presence of our feminine hearts. It will take courage in the darkness. It will take holding a torch for a while, and sometimes it will sputter out. It will take dozens moving into hundreds of hours. The slow march to freedom, the feminine within each one of us, emerging, the goddess returning to a lonely and despotic patriarchy. The lonely face of control. The goddess returning her beauty, her light, the balance that brings grace, the healing that leads to miracles, something that happens beyond what you expected. Trauma is at the core. Trauma literacy and trauma illiteracy, a pivot. Does this world evolve as it gives its chauvinism and its hatred to artificial intelligence to replicate at scale? Will it be the old patriarchal patterns given to robots so they can kill us down more efficiently? Or will it be this human and spiritual values of robots, to protect the innocent, to honor the child, to stop a parent who's lost it in a rage, and confine the child and comfort the child from a raging parent? What will our robots do? It will depend on the level of consciousness of the people who design them. And I hope you will join me in being one of the leaders in the growing the 2 to 3% to a 97% level of trauma and emotional literacy. The world we can create with that knowledge is profound.